We can talk about the Liverpool versus Manchester City title race. I can already hear Manchester United fans screaming, saying they are 1 point ahead of Liverpool at the moment. The reaction to Saturday night's been interesting, David. Roy Keane and Jamie Carragher in Sky Sports' studio were saying that this was actually a worse result than the Sheffield United one, given the way they approached the game. What do you reckon?
I can look. You can see why they'd say it. Of course, you'd be bitterly disappointed with Sheffield United. It's very different when you play, a team who are fighting for their lives in a relegation scrap. Certainly with the Arsenal, when they're missing 3 of their best players, with Saka, Tierney, and Aubameyang all out, you're kind of looking. This is our opportunity, and you have to agree that I think any Manchester United fan, if they were honest, who watched the game, they kind of United players almost lack that belief in themselves to kind of go on. It's there has been, as you said, certain things highlighted that they were at the top of the mountain, they were top, but it's almost they've got cold feet and they've got a little bit nervous. And I think there's probably a lack of, a champion mentality in that, changing room. To go on to be the ones that say, like, we are number one now, everyone's coming for us, to have that target in the back. Over the last, couple of seasons, they've always been trying to hunt teams down. They have the winning mentality because they've shown that, getting late goals, in certain games to go on and win it. But it was certainly disappointing in the way that they, against Liverpool, they should have gone on and won that game. And then against Arsenal, the chances they created, certainly someone like a Cavani, you've seen the impact he's had, that he's got to be scoring those. And it was kind of that sense of lack of that they can go and win the Premier League. I think that's the biggest concern. But look, they'll bounce back. Do I think they'll win the Premier League? No, I don't. I still think, Man City are the one in the driving seat. But you'd expect them to be up there.
Just to kind of challenge that a little bit, that idea that they didn't perhaps go for it as much as they could on Saturday night. When McTominay gets injured, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer brings on Anthony Martial. Like, there isn't many more substitutions he could have made at that point that could have been more offensive or more going forward from Solskjaer's perspective. There probably is an element of these attacking pieces just not being in full flowing mode at the moment. That maybe Solskjaer actually deserves a bit of credit for how he did change the game or try to affect the game after that injury.
No, definitely. But what I'm talking about is it's probably a lack of, a lack from the players. Kind of, there's only so much a manager can do. The manager's work is done during the week, and then once he picks the team, they cross the white line. They've got to go out and perform. Like Martial's form would be a concern for me, like in the sense that he's very hot or he's very cold. Obviously, we've seen the last few games, he hasn't been at the standard that we've seen him. If you look at once football came back at the end of last season, like, he was unstoppable. He needs to find a way to regain that form. But as you said, when McTominay goes off, he drops Pogba deep, he brings Martial and pushes him forward. He showed the signs to the team that I want to go on and win this game. They created enough chances, but there is a lack of belief in there that they can go and win the Premier League. And I think that inevitably will cost them.
That's okay, right? This year,
Yeah.
if like, we didn't really anticipate Manchester United being good enough to be title contenders this year, and if they continue to build, then that would be a big leap forward. But next year, you would hope, if they get into this scenario, that actually they would have that belief because they've been around and they've backed themselves. It's like, I mean, it's hard to say Liverpool didn't have the belief to go and win it the first year that they ran City close, because City set up a record number of points and Liverpool were always behind, but it always looked like City were going to do it. They were unstoppable. It looked, it's not quite a similar scenario, but Liverpool needed to build when Klopp arrived, and this is one of those United seasons where they're legitimately building. We can see players getting significantly better under the head coach, and we can see that there's been a plan in place, and they do have genuine quality in Bruno. So if I'm a Man United fan, I'm having a bit of patience and saying, okay, so let's drive this as far as we can this season. But if we don't win, it's not really that big a deal, is it?
Yeah, but if you're a United fan, you're used to winning. You've won 13 Premier League titles. You're used to having that success, and of course the last few years haven't been great under Mourinho, Van Gaal. Yeah, they've won different trophies here and there, but they've not been winning the Premier League, which is their bread and butter. That's the one that they're used to winning. I think at the start of the season, you'd have certainly said United would have felt that we want to be up there in the top 4 again, and we want to be, you know, closing that gap between Liverpool and City. Liverpool and City this year at different times have had, you know, bad runs, and United have found themselves in the driving seat. You know, yes, there has been talk about this next year's the big year where we really try and push on and win it. But they found themselves in a situation where they're first, and it's kind of like, yeah, we're only halfway through the season, but they found themselves in the driving seat and they found themselves there. It was almost as if they didn't believe that they had become, you know, top of the table, that they could stay and maintain it. But that's the kind of disappointing thing in those big games against the other top 6 sides, that if you want to win the Premier League, you have to be beating them. Like I'm talking even now before Liverpool play Brighton, Liverpool have to beat Manchester City. It's no good them going and Jurgen taking on this defensive mindset and settling for 0-0 draw. Liverpool have to beat City. And at times, you know, when Manchester United played, when they went to Liverpool, they needed to beat Liverpool. And then certainly when you look at, I think what's more frustrating with the Arsenal result is it's off the back of the Sheffield United one. If they had, you know, turned that around and put in, you know, a winning performance against Arsenal, you wouldn't be looking at the Sheffield United game. But that's the frustrating thing for them. It's kind of, you know, to not score and, you know, to miss the chances they did. It's kind of, that's where I kind of get that lack of belief in them. But at the same time, they can come back, and, you know, they will still put pressure on Liverpool and City. But I just feel at the moment it's going to take them another while to be ready to win that Premier League title.